Hello gamers, this is Sai, and welcome back to Which Way Games. It's finally time to return back to the streets.
Not those kind of streets, and with that being said, let's get on with the video.
In the late 80s and the early 90s, when side-scrolling beat-em-ups were on top of the world, gamers had some amazing games to play, such as Final Fight, Double Dragon and Captain Commando. However, the majority of these games lived within the arcade. But it wouldn't be long until the world of arcade gaming would make that transition into the homes of gamers. Console gamers would finally get the chance to play some of the arcade's most popular games, with some faithful ports that even now are looked back on with nostalgia. However, one console that seemed to be the king of side-scrolling beat-em-ups was the Sega Mega Drive, and when the fantastic Streets of Rage was released, it truly felt the arcade had made a new home under the TV. Streets of Rage was a must-have game for the 16-bit console from Sega, and when it was released, it was a huge success, and from this, a sequel was bound to follow, and gamers certainly weren't disappointed.
And this would be the highly anticipated sequel known as Streets of Rage 2. So let's take a trip back to the 90s.
Shortly after the release of Streets of Rage, development soon began, and knowing that Final Fight 2 was in the works, developers had to come up with something special. The main emphasis was to make Streets of Rage 2 bigger and better than the first game. Taking inspiration from Street Fighter 2 for its fast-paced combat, game developers wanted to emulate this. They all had a shared vision of how combat should flow, and with the Street Fighter 2 series becoming more insane with each release, this inspired many ideas. One idea that developers wanted to introduce was a 3-hit combo system for each character that would send the enemy flying, and this was key into making Streets of Rage 2 a worthy successor of the original. Some new characters would be introduced to create a balanced roster for gamers to use, however gamers' favourites, Axel and Blaze, would be making a return.
One of these was called Skate, which for some gamers is the best character in the entire series. Not because of his power or his speed, nope, it's because he wears inline skates.
Other side-scrolling beat-em-ups from the arcade were researched to see if Streets of Rage 2 could stand out, especially for gamers at home. And one way of doing this was introducing diagonal scrolling to create the illusion of larger stages.
This was also used in other games such as Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, another fantastic game from the arcade.
Over the course of development, there were a few issues that almost caused Streets of Rage 2 to be delayed, but luckily these were resolved, and in as little as over half a year, Streets of Rage 2 was ready for gamers to enjoy.
And like always, let's go back to the past to see how Streets of Rage 2 was advertised.
Young Bobby Engels has a problem. He needs to earn the respect of his peers. So he gets the special Sega Genesis lighting system. It comes with Streets of Rage 2. He saves $40. He gets more moves. He gets more control. Now things are pretty much okay.
I said chocolate chip. Say it. Say it.
The story of Streets of Rage 2 begins 1 year after the events that saw the defeat of Mr. X. Axel Stone, Blaze Fielding and Adam Hunter have all moved on with their lives, with Axel and Blaze moving out of the city. Until one fateful day, Adam is kidnapped and his kid brother known as Skate fears for his safety. Seeing crime has returned back to the city, it's clearly visible that the crime syndicate has returned, and with this, the evil Mr. X. Skate contacts Blaze and Axel, who vow to rescue Adam, but they'll need an extra pair of hands to help. Axel's friend Max Thunder stands ready to rescue Adam, and so does Skate. Soon the quartet embark on their rescue mission and to return peace back to the city.
Gameplay has gamers controlling Axel and his friends as they make their way through the city to defeat Mr. X once again.
Playing very similar to the original, Streets of Rage 2 follows the same style of gameplay. However, the overall look has been vamped up with larger character sprites, more intricate backgrounds, and a fantastic soundtrack that Streets of Rage 2 could have easily been an arcade exclusive. With 8 stages to punch and kick their way through, gamers are in for a treat, especially with the larger stages, the ever-increasing waves of enemies, and the end-of-stage bosses that look like something out of a typical 80s brawler movie.
With all this action, it's a treat for the ears and the eyes, especially for those gamers that were lucky enough to play Streets of Rage 2 when it was first released.
Speaking of all this action, this would follow the typical left to right movement from Streets of Rage, while enemies would appear in waves from either side of the screen. But unlike the original, enemies would now appear from all directions, depending on the stage gamers found themselves on. With 4 selectable characters to choose from, gamers will have no problem finding a fighter that will suit their playing style. Now, one thing that hasn't made a return is the police car attack from the first game. This has now been replaced with individual special moves for each character. For example, Axel Stone's attack bears a resemblance to Ryu's Shuriken from Street Fighter 2, but not as flashy. Using these special attacks is a great way of defeating multiple enemies at once, and grants a small amount of vulnerability. With plenty of improvements over the original, there was even a head-to-head option that allowed gamers to see who could be the bare-knuckle champion. This option of fighting one-on-one was a nice touch, and a slight nod towards Capcom.
When released, Streets of Rage 2 was highly acclaimed and instantly popular with gamers, even sparking an interest for gamers in the arcade.
Even being classed as one of the best games ever made for the Sega Mega Drive. With improved looks over the original and better gameplay, gamers were overjoyed with this fantastic sequel, which like the original appeared in other media. Streets of Rage 2 made an appearance in the beloved Sonic the Comic, following the plot of the game and giving a brief history on what our heroes got up to when Mr. X was defeated last time.
For Sega fans, this comic was fantastic. Maybe I'll make a video on it in the future.
Following on from the success of Streets of Rage 2, that some gamers class as one of the best games ever made, a third game in the series was released. Sadly, gamers are divided when it comes to Streets of Rage 3, with those stating that the game veered away from its roots, while others praise this change in gameplay as well as style. Overall, Streets of Rage 2 is a fun game to play, especially for those that love retro gaming, and this is a perfect introduction to the world of 16-bit.
The Streets of Rage series has appeared in many compilations over the years, including the Ultimate Sega Mega Drive Collection, which is jam-packed with some classics of 16-bit gaming.
Now, at the time of this video, the highly awaited Streets of Rage 4 has been released, which I've yet to play, but it's nice to see the series return with open arms for gamers. Hopefully, Streets of Rage 4 will be a return to what made this gaming series great, and with it, the possibility of a 5th game, perhaps even a Netflix show. Either way, Streets of Rage 2 is a must-have for any retro gamer, especially for those that collect for the Sega Mega Drive, alongside some other great games for the system.
Anyway, come back next time, where Donkey Kong has to claim back his hoard of missing bananas with the help of Diddy Kong. But can the pair stop the evil invasion of the Kremlings? Thank you so much for watching, and see you next game.